Okay, we are on lesson 138 of the Workbook of A Course in Miracles. Heaven is the decision I must make. It's a busy morning. There's a lot going on, so I'm not really sure how long this is going to be, and how long it's going to take me to tell you that of all the choices you think you have, there is only one choice, which actually means you don't have a choice. But until you see there's no choice, we continue to make them, and we continue to use the ability to choose, hopefully to choose for what we truly want, not in terms of concepts of what we want, not in terms of alternative to concepts that we don't want, but in the reality of the fact that there is only the kingdom, and you are that. And the choices that the world seems to hold and present are really no choices at all, as they are choices for a myriad of appearances of what is merely nothing and doesn't exist. And that's what basically we're learning. As I was reading this lesson for the second or third time, not really sure which one today, I realized that what's beginning to happen, and that started out perhaps seeming to be a linear progression based on the lessons at the very beginning, lesson 1 through 138, or actually 1 through a little bit earlier, 110 or so. It seems to have been a linear progression of ideas, all working within our mind to shake up and break up our erroneous perceptions and allow us the ability to have a new perception, a new way of perceiving, enter into our mind. And today's lesson begins to present the culmination of the purpose of all the lessons into a single lesson, as we begin to recognize that there really is only one choice that we could possibly want, because there really is only one choice that can possibly be made, and that's for the singular nature of the reality that we were created to participate in, and anything else other than that just merely fragments the myriad choices of nothingness that appear as a world in space and time, and keep us from knowing the truth of who we are and the truth of where we actually are, and have never actually really left. In this world, heaven is a choice, because here we believe there are alternatives to choose between. We think that all things have an opposite, and what we want, we choose. Now, the funny thing about it is that the dualistic nature of the split mind that we utilize presents us with an idea, and then it also, in the presentation and thought that that idea is true, it gives us the counter ideas of what, based on that idea, neither one of which is true. And yet, we seem to think that it represents another choice. So for a moment, we have to at least admit that heaven seems to be a choice that we need to make that is not for hell. But what's more hellacious than thinking that we constantly have to choose and evaluate based on the myriad of forms that we think are real, when some of the forms that we think are real are things that we would not want to give up, and we don't want to lose the things we love. We don't want to lose the things we think we need. And yet, until we see that we need nothing here because we've been given everything, we still continue to choose. So this is giving us a criteria to choose, with the acceptance for a moment that we have the ability to choose between alternatives. And what we're ultimately being offered is an alternative that has no alternatives. And that once it is chosen, we have an experience of something that is real, and the experience of that as being real, the alternative with no alternative, begins to be the light by which we look upon everything from our mind. And that's how you know, finally, that you've chosen wisely, because you choose for an alternative that has no alternative, a choice that ends the need to choose, and the experience that it brings to you is one of something that has no opposite and to which there is no opposition to. Now, I can't tell you what that is because it's an experience of what's real, whole, and perfect. And the reality and the wholeness and perfection is not based on anything here, but it is based on God's creation of you as your only single reality. And that's where this is all headed to. And that's the culmination that this lesson is bringing to us in the ability to make that choice now. Thinking we've made that choice as a rejection of other choices is not the actual choice that we are given to make. Yet, we have to begin to look into our minds and hearts the way they are now and accept that it seems like that. Because when we begin to accept that it seems like that, we begin to have arise up in us all the things that are keeping us from choosing the alternative that has no alternative. And that's where we apply forgiveness. That's what we apply forgiveness to. We think that all things have an opposite, and what we want, we choose. If heaven exists, there must be a hell as well. For contradiction is the way we make what we perceive and what we think is real. Creation has no opposite, but here is opposition part of being real, and that real is in quotes. So it's not real, but it is real in terms of the acceptance of the fact that where we think we find ourselves is real, and it is acceptance of the fact that where we find ourselves seems to present us with a world of opposites that are in opposition to each other. In this strange perception of truth, what makes the choice of heaven seem to be the same as the relinquishment of hell, it is not really thus. Yet what is true in God's creation cannot enter here until it is reflected in some form the world can understand. Truth cannot come where it could only be perceived with fear, for this would make the error. Truth can be brought to illusions. Opposition makes the truth unwelcome, and it cannot come. So here, what he's saying basically is, yet what is true in God's creation cannot enter here until it is reflected in some form the world can understand. So in some way, when you begin to see and choose the alternative that has no alternative, it enters into your mind and you begin to see it within, let's call it the new vision that you're given right here, where previously you couldn't see it at all. Jesus talked about that 2,000 years ago when he said the kingdom of heaven is all about you, yet you see it not. When he discovered it in his mind, he discovered that it was the only thing that was real. Now, that seems to be a paradox and possibly an impossibility when the experience hasn't occurred within you. Yet this lesson is a brilliant presentation, utilizing words within our own vernacular to give us clearly and unambiguously a teaching that offers us a conceptual framework that allows the experience that we have and are required to have to both be made available to us and to make sense when it occurs to us. And that's one of the things that's brilliant in Jesus's brilliant use of the language of the vernacular, to be able to convey and construct sentences in a formulation that are almost impossible to misconstrue unless the desire to be confused and misconstrue what's available to you in reality continues within yourself. And that's one of the ways that I was shown and taught to use A Course in Miracles. This, Jesus is always presenting us with the truth, and the egoic construction of this bodily identity that seems to exist in space and time relies on the ego twisting things so as to make them non-understandable, to help confuse us by presenting us with a myriad of choices or a myriad of interpretations, when in fact the mistake of interpretation and perception is within me. So I can trust this to be offering me the truth. And in my admission that perhaps I'm not understanding it, or it's presenting me with another, let's call it insurmountable paradox, or adding to the confusion, I can go within my own heart and mind, find that confusion, feel it within me, and then not solve the problem the way we've been traditionally solving the problem, by manufacturing solutions in space and time that make the problem real and seem to fragment it once again. I can, in the not being willing to solve a problem, I can decide to not decide and allow something to be revealed to me that was previously unavailable to me when I kept my mind closed by the need to think that I can conceptually solve problems and manufacture solutions where no solution is, giving me an identity within the world of space and time, but none of the peace and joy of the kingdom within which I'm created to be the extension of. And that's the dilemma that every human being faces in this world, in this strange perception of the truth, which makes the choice of heaven seem to be the same as the relinquishment of hell. It is not really thus. If that was true, it would make heaven real. It would make hell real. If heaven was a choice that caused us to relinquish anything whatsoever, it would cause us to think that which we would need to relinquish was just as real as heaven, and therefore our mind would exist in a condition of thinking we were asked to sacrifice something, and we would look around and see that sacrifice being enacted upon each and every one of us daily in all of our choices. That's not what this is here to offer us. We're being offered something entirely different. The choice for an alternative that has no alternative within the condition of space and time, where a myriad of questions seem to exist. And I think he gets there sooner or later. It is not really thus. Yet what is true in God's creation cannot enter here. Choice is the obvious escape from what appears as opposites. Yes, we need to choose. Yes, we must choose. Choose you must. Decision lets one of conflicting goals become the aim of effort and expenditure of time. Now, that's one of the reasons why we seem to not only waste time, but waste away in time due to the procrastination that we make in our choosing, because we somewhere recognize that when we choose, we've always chosen wrong and increased the problems that we've been attempting to solve rather than solve the problem once and for all. It's debilitating, and we need not experience that any longer. We can now come to accept the true choice that eliminates the need to choose again in an experience that shows us something real rather than seems to continue in a linear progression, the need to solve the problem over and over again. How did the impossible happen? Without decision, time is but a waste, and effort dissipated. It is spent for nothing in return, and time goes by without results. There is no sense of gain, for nothing is accomplished, nothing learned. Yes, the admission of that allows us to learn something new. Don't avoid the confrontation that presents to you in your own mind. Don't let that slip by. Allow the confrontation, the totality of confrontation this is offering to the way that you've been thinking in your own mind to occur for just a single second. Just one single holy instant in which you do not write the solution in the space where the holiness can begin to dawn upon itself and reveal yourself to you. You need to be reminded that you think 1,000 choices are confronting you when there is really only one to make. Exactly. You need to be reminded that every day you are confronted with thousands of choices. Let yourself be confronted for a single instant with this one whole confrontation, and it will change the nature of who you know yourself to be in your experience of who you are right here, right now. Daily, we are confronted with choices. This is a confrontation that can end the need for those confrontations and present to you an experience wherein which you find the peace of God within your own wholeness of creation and need not once again face the confusion in the same way that you did previously. It's not that you won't be faced and confronted with the choices, but you will have in your mind the light of the reality of a single whole perfect choice that you've already made and be able to rely on that and what you learned in the willingness to make that choice to be the way that you continue to choose. Do not confuse yourself with all the doubts the myriad decisions would induce. You make but one. And when that one is made, you will perceive it was no choice at all. Why? Because there is no opposite to heaven and no opposition with it. It is whole and perfect and total. It's a totality. It's a totality. It's a singular totality. That's what your reality is, without opposition and within which no opposition can enter, because it's only one thing. It's what love is, and what's that? It's just what you are. And when that one is made, you will perceive it was no choice at all, for truth is true and nothing else is real. Nothing else is real but the truth. There is no opposite to choose instead. There is no contradiction to the truth. And you can see it takes Jesus a paragraph to set it up, 2 paragraphs to go through the loops that are in your mind, and a single paragraph to offer you the way in which you can allow the confrontations that you face every day to finally be eliminated in a single confrontation that allows a holy instant to dawn upon you in your own mind so that you can recognize that truth is true and what's not true has never had any reality, and remember that that's always been within you and you've never really been lost from it. You've just lost or broken the communication with it that is always available to you.